Hi guys, Mike here, and I'm back for you guys today to have a talk about biting in our puppies. It's a problem that obviously a lot of you are having. It's a really common one as well, to be honest. I've not met a single puppy yet that doesn't have issues with biting. And as much as we can sit there and go, yeah, their mouths are small, their teeth are small, they might be small, but they are still real teeth and they are still very, very sharp. So yeah, sure, it does hurt, so it's a big problem and something that we need to get on top of. So how do we go about doing that? I think the first thing that we need to understand about biting in puppies, guys, is where it comes from. So it is what we call developmental behaviour, and it's something that we expect to happen in any age of puppy, in any breed of puppy as well, and regardless of sex, male or female, the behaviour is still going to be the same. The way that dogs explore the world is with their mouths, okay? So very few thoughts come into their mind when they see something new in the environment, and normally one of the first things that they're going to think about is, can I eat it? So it's really normal for dogs to explore things with their mouths. If you think with human babies, obviously we explore with our hands. Dogs don't have hands, so the closest thing that they've got to be able to have the same sense of everything of what's going on with that item is their mouth. So it's really common in that instance for them to want to explore anything new with their mouths, and unfortunately that can include your hands. One of the main reasons that I see puppies biting for is normally when they're overtired or overstimulated. And again, I'm going to use kids because kids are a fantastic analogy. Apologies to those of you that don't have children. If you think when our kids are overtired, obviously I can only really speak for my own, but when my kids are overtired, they are more likely to play up, they're more likely to be irritable, they're more likely to display a lot of the behaviours that I don't particularly want to see. And that's just because they're tired. And the same thing applies exactly with our puppies as well. Puppies need a lot more rest during the day than what we think they do. So over a 24-hour period, ideally in an ideal setting, our puppies would have between 16 to 18 hours of rest per day. And I know you're going to go, that's a lot, Mike. No puppy sleeps that long. Like I say, it's not just sleep, it's sleep and rest. So just settling in the house as well. And if we're unable to get somewhere close to those figures, you are very likely to end up with a puppy that is overtired, meaning that you are going to see more problem behaviours, with biting being one of them. So the other thing that I spoke about was an overstimulated puppy. So what I mean by an overstimulated puppy is maybe when you're playing. So you're playing with toys, you're having a really good time, your puppy's energy and arousal levels are really getting high, and that's going to increase their likelihood to bite as well. Also, again, for those of you with children, the energy of your children in the house will have a massive impact. So a lot of people have issues with maybe the puppy not biting them, but biting the kids instead. And that is a direct reflection on the energy of the children. So if your kids are anything like mine and they're sort of running around being a little bit crazy and being loud, that is going to stimulate and arouse the puppy. So what that means is that now in that instance, our puppy is more likely now to run up and want to engage. They're going to lift their energy levels up to meet the kids, and they're going to bite them because they're now in an overstimulated state. So being aware of the way that our children act around a puppy is super, super, super important. I appreciate fully that is easier said than done because, you know, if you work with either dogs or children, I work with both, you'll understand that being able to control either and their emotions and their excitement levels is a big challenge. So I appreciate that one, but that is something that's really important to bear in mind. So the key to stopping biting, guys, is to be interrupting that behaviour that you don't want. So if you're sat on the floor and you're playing with your puppy with a toy, okay, and your puppy decides to bite you, at that moment, you're literally going to drop the toy, stand up, and walk away. Because it's really important that our puppy learns in that moment that biting actually makes you go away. And typically speaking, that's not actually what they want. That's not the ultimate goal. It's not what they're trying to achieve. They're just trying to play with you in the way that they know how. So if we get up and walk away, we are simulating what mum would do with them and what their litter mates would do with them when they're very, very young. If they bite too hard, is they would literally end whatever's happening, get up and walk away. So by us being able to simulate that by doing the same thing, that's going to make it a lot easier for our puppies to understand that that is not an acceptable behaviour. The other thing that we can do is when our puppies bite us, we can give them instead something that they are allowed to have. So a nice chew, a toy that they can play with. We give them that, literally put that into their mouth and then tell them how good they are. It's really important that we deal with it and we act immediately as soon as teeth goes on skin. What I normally find is that people want to, let's say, give their puppies the benefit of the doubt. So, you know, puppy will start biting them, they'll say no, they'll continue doing whatever they're doing, they'll say no again, continue doing what they're doing, say no again. And sometimes it's not till like the 4th, 5th or 6th time of you saying no that you actually act on it and walk away or give the puppy something else or give them a timeout. So it's really important that we do it first time every single time, because consistency is a key factor in dog training, guys. We've got to be super consistent with everything that we're doing. So that's with all the exercises that we've shown you as well. You've got to be consistent and do the same things across the board every single time you practice them. And the same thing applies to biting. Any single time the teeth goes on skin, you're going to say no and you're going to act with your chosen method. So a few other things that we can do, guys, is what we call timeouts. Timeouts are basically putting your dog away from you. So putting them in a crate and shutting the door, or putting them in another room and shutting the door. So this enables them to calm down, it allows them to lower their arousal levels, and it's a good interrupter to the unwanted behaviors as well. So unlike Super Nanny, when she does it with kids, we're not doing sort of, you know, 1 minute per month of age. We're not applying that principle. When you're doing it with dogs, the timeout literally only needs to be 2 minutes. It's not a punishment. So it's really important that if your puppy bites you, you don't shout at them, grab them by the scruff or by the collar and launch them into the crate, because that's not going to do your relationship any favors. And all that's going to do is turn the area that you're putting the dog into a negative place. And you certainly don't want to be doing that with your crate, when I imagine some of you are still crate training as well. You're also not going to want to do that with any other room in the house, to be honest, because you're going to end up associating that as a negative. So if the puppy bites you and you're using the timeout method, you just very gently stand up, lead the dog calmly to where you want them to go, pop them in the crate, pop them in another room and shut the door. 2 minutes and they can come back out, as simple as that. The other time that I find timeouts really useful is if your puppies are anything like my little one, Delta. When I get up because she's bitten me and walk away, she'll just follow me and bite me on the back of the legs instead. So that's a moment where I'd immediately pop her in a timeout, stick her in a crate, stick her where she can't get to me, so that she has that opportunity then to calm down and not continuously repeat that behavior that we don't want them doing. A few things to bear in mind is certain breeds, guys, are going to be more likely to bite than others. So a few of them just to sort of mention, there are going to be more than what I go through, but this is just a few things to bear in mind from our experience. Hungarian Vizslas, they are quite bad mouthers, and that can happen and continue up until later stages. Staffordshire Bull Terriers as well. They are quite prone to bite and mouth going on a little bit longer. Most of our working breeds, so things like Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, touch herders like my puppy, because a lot of these dogs and what they're bred for is to do things with their mouths and bite things, they are going to be more likely to want to mouth stuff. Same goes to apply for anything that's a retriever, any Labrador, any Golden Retrievers. I mean, to be honest with them, with your retriever type breeds, the best method that I find works with them is stopping what you're doing and instead giving them something that they can have and rewarding them for that instead. The reason why I keep talking about rewarding them for doing that when they're doing it right is because we're really quick as dog owners to tell our dogs no. We're really quick to tell them what they've done wrong, but we're not so quick to tell them when they're doing something right. So if the puppy bites you and you say no, and then you give them a chew that they can have and they start chewing it, I would be rewarding that. Just verbally, you don't need to use food because they've already got a chew. I would just reward that verbally with like, good boy, good girl, just so that they know, okay, so this is the behavior that they want. The biting is not the behavior that they want. Now I understand. So it's really important that we give them basically the information to know which one is the correct alternative. So a couple more things to speak about. First one is play fighting. I normally find that this is done by the gentleman, okay, myself included, I get in trouble for it. We like to play with our dogs with our hands. We like to play fight with them, we like to play wrestle with them. This is generally speaking, guys, you're all gonna think I'm a party pooper now, I'm really boring, I'm sorry, but it's a bad idea. It is a bad idea, because if we're teaching our dogs that at any moment it is okay or appropriate to bite our hands, and then we're trying to say to them at other times that's not okay, it just muddies the water and it adds a lot of confusion. So it's a lot easier to just say categorically, nope, not happening, you are not biting me, and then it makes it a lot clearer for the dog, meaning that they are then more likely to get things right going forwards in future. So for any of you that are doing that, my advice would be to stop doing that. I mean, if you live at home on your own, it's just you and you want to do that, fine. crack on. Just make sure that your dog has a good understanding of when that game gets to stop. For those of you with kids at home, how is your dog supposed to tell the difference between playing that play fighting game with you with your hands and not with your kids? So you might be okay with your hands getting bitten, the kids might not. So that's a really important thing to try and bear in mind. It's an important factor. Last thing that I want to talk about as well, guys, is the way that we touch our dogs. And this is to do with our energy and how we transmit energy onto the dog, teaching them how to respond. If when we're stroking them, if we're really frantic, if we're moving our hands up and down the dog's body super, super fast, we're taking our hand on and off, on and off, on and off, that's going to raise the arousal level of your dog, meaning that you are then more likely in turn to get bitten. A better way of doing it is to keep your touch on your dog nice and calm. And I know that's difficult with wiggly dogs, I know. But if you keep your touch calm, it will lower your dog's energy and arousal levels as well, meaning that they are then less likely to bite you. So the easiest way to kind of explain that, guys, is when you're stroking your dog, it should be nice, gentle movements up and down without then taking your hand back off the dog. So when we take the hand off the dog, we're giving them information because we're releasing pressure. I'm going to go into that a little bit later in another video because that's a whole different thing altogether. It's important that we just keep the hand on the dog, just nice and soft, methodical, same pressure, same speed, up and down, in the places that you know your dog typically likes it. So for most dogs, that's going to be here, and it's going to be at the base of their tail as well, where it joins onto the back of their spine. Most dogs really, really like it there. I'm not teaching you guys to suck eggs and literally not teaching you how to stroke your dogs, because I'm sure you all know. It's just an important thing to bear in mind that if you do touch your dog in a frantic state, they are then in turn more likely to bite you. And then other things that we can do to help is doing boundary training with our dogs, because it's part of kind of what we'll call a capture calm exercise. So we're kind of rewarding the dog for being calm. By doing that boundary training and really pushing on it, we're allowing our dogs to calm naturally in the house, get themselves into a calm state because they're laying down, without then a likelihood of them coming up to you and biting. So for any of you that have seen the boundary training video, I would really, really, really push on practicing that a lot, making sure your dog understands that this is a boundary, this is what I lay down on, this is where I relax, because it then gives you another place where you can pop your dog when you're trying to do things in the house without getting bitten. So I really hope that this has answered all of your questions, guys. If it's not, and you've got something going on, maybe an individual issue with your dog, or you just want to check that perhaps you're doing the right thing, feel free to drop a comment below this video, and either myself, Jenny, or Verity will answer your questions. I do appreciate that this is it's an important topic for a lot of you, so I want to try and make sure that I'm giving you as much information as I possibly can. So just bear in mind, guys, key points to remember: interrupt it first time, every time, not the 5th time or 6th time. It's first time. This applies to everybody in the house, okay? You can't have one of you doing everything properly and then your husband, I'm not picking on the guys, but then the husband sort of allowing the dog to get away with it, because then ultimately you're not going to end up with the results that you want. So it's really important that everybody in the house sings from the same song sheet. Tell them no, interrupt it. If you're giving them something that they can have, make sure that you then reward that by saying good boy, good girl, or a gentle little bit of fuss. And another method that you can use there is the boundary training as well. So bearing all that in mind, and with your timeouts, if you need them, if you've got the type of dog that follows you and bites you when you're trying to walk away, that's all the different methods that I would use personally, and the ones that I use with my own dogs. It's a little bit different with my dogs. I mean, I don't necessarily teach my dogs not to bite, because I want to keep parts of prey drive there for certain dog sports that I do with mine, but certainly 100% for any dog that you've got at home as a pet dog, you need to get on top of it, because it can stick, and you can end up with an adult dog that still likes to mouth, and if they don't have any bite inhibition, it can be quite hard, and like we mentioned at the start of the video, it hurts when a dog bites you. So those are your key points, guys. Any questions, like I said, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.